This is BBC News. I'm Christian Fraser. A former Facebook employee tells British MPs the social media giant is unquestionably making hate worse. Francis Haugen has said the company's algorithms will fuel sporadic episodes of violent conflict by spreading divisive content.
Anger and hate is the easiest way to grow on Facebook.
A shocking report from Afghanistan. The BBC finds some parents so desperate for food they're prepared to sell their children. And in the UK, an increase in the national living wage will be included in the Chancellor's budget announcement Wednesday. We'll look at what that means for workers and the employers. Hello. More than a third of the world's population are active users of Facebook and its other social media products. No company in the world has such power and yet such little transparency. But things are changing. Since Friday, a consortium of news organisations in the United States has begun publishing a series of stories called the Facebook Papers. Truly shocking details. Our thanks to Lagita and her team. Plenty for the G20 leaders to discuss in Rome when they meet later this week. Do stay with us on BBC News still to come. What happens when you raise the minimum wage, as the British government has set out to do? We'll look at the consequences for employers and workers. Petrol prices in the UK have reached a record level, beating the previous high in 2012. Simon Williams from the RAC said it's mainly due to the rising oil prices. Ahead of the British government spending review on Wednesday, we learned today of an inflation-busting increase in the national living wage. It's to rise 6.6% next April to £9.50. That's $13 an hour. It's in line with Prime Minister Boris Johnson's recent pledging to transform the UK into a high-wage, high-skill, high-productivity economy. Do stay with us here on the programme. More to come. We're going to talk about the Alec Baldwin case and the sad case of the cinematographer who was shot and killed on the set of Rust last week. We've got an expert on firearms coming onto the programme who does arm actors on set, but with very different methods to the ones used in Rust. This is BBC News with the latest headlines for viewers here in the UK and around the world. Facebook whistleblower Francis Haugen has told British politicians that the social network is unquestionably making hate worse. New details emerge of the fatal shooting of a crew member on a film set. Legal papers reveal Alec Baldwin was pointing a revolver at a camera during rehearsal when it fired. A warning on climate change. The world is way off track in limiting rising temperatures, says the United Nations. And explosive allegations that the organisers of the January 6th storming of Capitol Hill had planned meetings with members of Congress. We are learning much more about the events that led to the tragic death of a crew member on the set of Alec Baldwin's new film Rust. The affidavit released Sunday reveals the actor was drawing a revolver across his body and pointing it at a camera during rehearsal when the weapon fired. Do stay with us on BBC News still to come. Claims that members of Congress were involved in planning pro-Trump rallies on January 6th. We'll talk live to the journalist who broke the story. Some of the organisers for the pro-Trump rallies that took place in Washington on January 6th have begun communicating with congressional investigators about what happened when the former president's supporters stormed the US Capitol. They've also spoken extensively to Rolling Stone magazine and have detailed explosive allegations that multiple members of Congress were involved. We will be back at the same time tomorrow. If you're watching here in the UK, 10 o'clock news is right around the corner, and Laura is here for World Viewers with World News America, so do stay with us for that. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
BBC experts check.
This is BBC News. I'm Christian Fraser. Another day, another depressing report from the United Nations on climate change. We have 8 years to halve our greenhouse gas emissions, and commitments made by those gathering in Glasgow this week are a fraction of what is required. It's not just Facebook in the dock. TikTok, Snapchat and YouTube executives were on Capitol Hill today to answer uncomfortable questions on the type of content they're steering towards young people. Speaking of which, YouTube today censored more spurious claims by President Bolsonaro of Brazil. The Senate will vote this next hour on his abject handling of the COVID pandemic. And in a galaxy far, far away, astronomers have found what could be a planet, the first ever discovered outside our own Milky Way. Hello. What is it going to take for our politicians to heed the warnings? The science on climate change is unequivocal, and yet the studies show we are not reducing the threat. Far from it. This past year, in spite of the pandemic, we've released record amounts of CO2 into the atmosphere. It's a very good point. Rishi Bharwani, thank you very much for being with us. Do stay with us on BBC News still to come. How astronomers have spotted the first signs of a planet beyond the Milky Way. We'll discuss that next. Space stories have the tendency to boggle the brain, at least they do mine, and this is no exception to that. Astronomers think they have found what could be the first planet ever discovered outside our galaxy. We know of 5,000 so-called exoplanets, those worlds that are orbiting stars beyond our sun, but all of them have been located within the Milky Way galaxy.
In an external galaxy.
Quite astonishing. Dr. Stefano, a real pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much for coming on. And a new thing every day on this programme. Stay with us. This is BBC News with the latest headlines for viewers here in the UK and around the world. Days before the COP26 summit, the UN warns plans to cut global emissions fall far short of what's needed to avert dangerous climate change. We have a special report from Libya where the father and mother of Manchester bomber Salman Abedi remain under surveillance. They are both suspects in the case. A judge in New York tells Prince Andrew he must answer questions under oath by the middle of July in a lawsuit accusing him of sexual assault. The Duke denies the allegations. And the union that would not be denied. The story of two childhood sweethearts separated because of their race who will marry 40 years on. The BBC has confirmed that the parents of the Manchester bomber Salman Abedi are still living in the Libyan capital Tripoli. They're under surveillance by Libyan authorities. Both Ramadan Abedi and his wife Samia are suspects in the case. They've not been charged with any offence. Katie, I know you will bring us the result of that vote as and when it comes, but for the moment, thank you very much for that. Katie Watson there in Brasilia. Stay with us on BBC News still to come. The star-crossed teenagers forced apart by racism who are now tying the knot almost 40 years on. We'll talk to them both live. Japan's Princess Mako has married a commoner and left the royal family. There was no Shinto ceremony or big reception for the niece of the emperor. Instead, she and her fiancé went to the equivalent of the Tokyo Register's office. I don't need two invitations. I'll put it to the boss. I'll see what she says. Mark, Bethel, Penny Umbers, many congratulations. A happy ending to a story that we loved. And thank you very much for coming on and being good sports about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for watching. We'll be back same time tomorrow. We'll see you then.
Hurricane Rick made landfall in southern Mexico.
This is BBC News. I'm Christian Fraser. The gun that Alec Baldwin fired on set, killing a cinematographer last week, did contain a live round. The film's assistant director told police he did not check every chamber of the gun as he should have done. The Santa Fe district attorney said they're not ruling out criminal negligence. It's a budget bonanza in the UK. Or is it? The Chancellor has raised the pay of millions of British people, but how much of it will they see amid the rising inflation and the spiralling cost of living? Public health experts in the United States recommend children aged 5 to 11 should get the Pfizer jab, saying the benefits outweigh the risks. And in England and Wales, we'll soon be getting a glimpse of how our ancestors lived in the wake of the First World War. The 1921 census is finally about to be published. Hello. The weapon fired by actor Alec Baldwin on a film set in New Mexico last week contained a live round that killed crew member Helena Hutchins. The Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office, investigating the cinematographer's death, said today they have recovered that bullet from the shoulder of director Joel Souza, who was also wounded. Dr. Levy, thank you very much indeed for your expertise. Good to have you on the programme.
Thank you, Christian. An honour.
Do stay with us here on BBC News. Still to come, how the soon-to-be-released 1921 census gives us a glimpse into what life after the First World War was really like. It cost eye-watering sums of money but failed to achieve its main objective. That's the damning verdict of a cross-party group of MPs about the NHS Test and Trace programme here in England. The group condemned a reliance on what it called overpriced consultants and said the programme failed to help cut COVID infections. Here's the chair of the House of Commons Public Accounts Committee, Dame Meg Hillier. The British Chancellor Rishi Sunak spoke of a new age of optimism today as he set out an economic plan which was probably a lot brighter than many might have feared. There was extra spending for the health service, a boost to all departmental budgets for the next 3 years, pay rises for millions of workers and investment for the government's levelling up agenda. How exciting. Audrey Collins, thank you for coming on the programme to explain it to us. If you are really interested in genealogy, then you'll be excited to know that it will be shown on the family history website, Find My Past. It will be there from January. So if you're missing a gap in your family history, it might soon be plugged. This is BBC News with the latest headlines for viewers here in the UK and around the world. Criminal charges against Alec Baldwin are not ruled out as police say the gun that he fired, killing cinematographer on the set of the film Rust, contained a live round. The UK Chancellor promises a post-COVID age of optimism as he delivers his budget. He raises the pay of millions of Britons, but at a time of higher taxes and rising inflation. Could a US tax on billionaires proposed by a leading Democrat be stymied hours after the idea was floated? Democrat Senator Joe Manchin has poured cold water on the plan. Concrete. We consume 4.1 billion tonnes of it every year, and it is catastrophic for the climate. We meet the Canadian makers of a carbon-neutral alternative they say won't cost us the earth. Hello, welcome back. Barely had the Democrats sketched out their new plans to tax the country's billionaires, then suddenly there appeared a familiar roadblock in the shape of Joe Manchin, the Democratic senator from West Virginia, who today tells reporters he doesn't like the new plan because it unfairly targets a specific group of people. Do stay with us here on BBC News. Still to come, the Australian footballer Josh Cavallo has come out as gay, the only top-level male player in the world to do so. The Australian footballer Josh Cavallo has revealed he's gay, making him the only active top-level male professional player in the world to be open about his homosexuality. He's been talking to BBC World News about his decision to go public. Chris Stone, very good to talk to you. Best of luck with the project there in Canada. Maybe one solution to the enormous problem that we face with the emissions we're putting into the planet. I'm going to be in Glasgow next week, bringing you all the details from the COP26 summit, so I won't be here tomorrow. James Reynolds will be here in the seat, but I will see you from Glasgow on Sunday. Look forward to that. Bye-bye.